Ladies and gentlemen, what's good? It's your boy BQ and TW here with the Cool
Hola.
Factor podcast, brought to you, of course, by the Impact Lounge, a YouTube channel, and Impact Lounge podcast networks. Thanks for listening. As always, thanks for tuning in. Appreciate you each and every time you guys give us your attention. So today's episode, what we're going to be doing, we're going to give you our predictions for 2021. And then we're going to run down this show here as well. At first, we weren't going to talk about the show too much, but I said, hey, we got to do this because this was a good episode. Not everything was good, but it was a good show overall for me. The first thing I do want to point out though, TW, is that the viewership was down to 148,000, and I did say this on the last podcast, I think, or maybe it was one of my solo ones where I said I was fairly certain once they got back to television that the ratings and the viewership was going to go right back to where it was. And this was actually a lot lower. I think part of that is because they filmed a couple, I'm going to call them bullshit episodes of
Yeah.
very cookie cutter, like wrestling's, oh, it's the end of the year where you got to do end of the year shows. Like, no, you don't. You really don't. Like, just give us good content. But whatever, opportunity for them to, maybe logistically save some money or something. So I get it, but it's hard to do 2 weeks of that in a row and then bounce back with a regular episodic show. And then also I think the Kenny Omega stuff's been beat to death. I think when they got all the eyes on the initial episode with him, or the first couple, I don't think there was enough of a, I don't think they did a bad job. I'm just saying I don't think it was a payoff enough for a lot of these people to be like, okay, I'm tuning back in.
Yeah. Yeah.
I said the only way that it was going to go up is if he wrestles on the show at this point, and that's it's not going to happen.
Yeah. I mean, I totally get that. I mean, me personally, I'm still a fan of it. Like I enjoy seeing Kenny Omega. I think the interactions that he's had with the people on Impact have been good. He's so corny. Like he's such a bro. And like but that's his personality, right? Like his personality is like not cool. And by the way, this follows along with a lot of what I've been saying about this whole Kenny Omega Good Brothers thing, which is like, a lot of people who think they're cool because of their whole New Japan thing. But as somebody who didn't watch New Japan or ROH, like I was like, yo, I don't get it, right? But now that the majority of the group is there, I'm kind of seeing, at least the dynamic makes more sense, because it's like, hey, we're all corny, but we're all corny together. We're all in on the inside joke, and that makes it more fun. So yeah, I mean, I'm enjoying Kenny Omega on Impact.
All right, so before we get into this episode, I got to show off my I said I ordered a lot of Alicia merchandise, so I've got my Lishism t-shirt, and I've got my autographed Eddie and Alicia photo. Got
Oh,
autographed Eddie World Champion photo.
oh,
Another autograph Eddie and Alicia photo.
oh.
Got autograph Alicia photo, and then I got
Woo.
their Christmas card here, autographed also. So if you're watching on YouTube, uh,
Now,
here.
where did you get these? I mean,
I
were
ordered it
you
from her direct.
Impact?
I ordered from her directly.
Oh, wow.
So so she still owes me a poster, but she said she couldn't. It was too big to ship. So I'm making a plan over the next couple of months when they come to Nashville to head out there and have dinner with a friend from Impact, and then hopefully I can get him at that point. So, but yeah, had to show him off because I got him finally. So
Very nice,
all right.
very nice.
All right, so let's get into this episode real quick. This kicked off with an X Division match. So this was the go home show to Genesis. It's a far cry from what they've done before with Impact Plus shows before. Before you'd have an Impact Plus show, not even a mention on the show. So now they treat them like pay-per-views, which is good. And this one is a Super X Cup. Doesn't have a whole lot of buzz behind it, but we got Ace Austin, who made a random return. He's one of the guys who I also think has horrible theme music. But he took on Blake Christensen, Casey Navarro, Crazy Steve. So long story short, Crazy Steve won this. We got, finally got to see some new young male talent on the show, which we haven't seen in forever. And I thought they looked okay. It was what it was. You got any comments on the match at all? Crazy Steve wins the match. He's not an X Division style wrestler, but clearly the X Division has like two guys in it. So,
right.
got the choice.
So pretty much they were just trying to introduce people for that Super X Cup that's coming up. And so, look, I'm okay with that. You gotta have like, there's a pattern, right? There's a pattern to storytelling, and, part of it is introducing the characters. So, I'm always patient when you're introducing characters.
Yeah. And, what this told me, if you're watching on YouTube, we definitely have a little bit of a lag here from audio to video. We tried to fix it, but I'm not sure it's catching up. But the one thing that this pointed out to me is that Impact needs a mid card title badly. We've talked about this before, and the reason I say this is because with this Super X Cup, you're bringing in guys who I use the term have never heard of. That's not true. I mean, a lot of our listeners have heard of these guys. I'm just saying they're not huge names, but you're bringing outsiders in. You're using Crazy Steve. If the X Division was a mid card title, you'd see Moose wrestling for it, and you'd see all these guys, but they're not. They're
right.
This is who's competing in that division. So it's telling you it is a lightweight division. It just is. It's a cruiserweight division. Let's stop with this no limits, because no one that's big wrestles for this title. Every once in a while, someone does, but they
put it on Cage. They put it on Cage, and I dare say I think someone else is going to get that title, but we'll talk more about that later.
Okay, cool. Tony Khan did another commercial, Dog and Impact. Don't really need to talk about that. So Cousin Jake and Rhino took on Eric Young and Joe Doring. The point I want to make about this is that, so I saw the match graphic on social media before I watched the episode, and I was like, okay, I have some, even though Tommy Dreamer's in the match, I have some interest in it because I wanted to see the new Diener, and I say Eric Young and Joe Doring, but Eric Young didn't wrestle in the match. Cody Diener did instead. But when I saw the graphic, I had interest in it. I'm like, okay, this actually looks kind of cool. And then I watched the episode, and I'm like, wow, they gave away a lot of the match. And I say that because they should have saved Cody Diener for the payper-view. You might as well save Joe Doring for the pay-per-view. And then you had Cousin Jake and Cody Diener already fighting. Jake was kind of getting his butt kicked for the most part. Probably not the best way to promote him going into the Super X Cup. But then at the end, like every pay-per-view, here's Tommy Dreamer. We're going old school. So then it really took the my interest away very quickly after watching it play out on the show. But
wait, so you don't want more Tommy Dreamer?
I don't. Even though he should be the Impact Wrestler of the Year 2020, and the one to watch. I've been saying this for a couple of years now. I have no interest in going old school anymore. Like, it means nothing at this point.
Yeah.
So,
how do you really feel?
So yeah. So anything on this match at all?
Yeah. So the thing that I didn't like about it was, again, the Tommy Dreamer part, right? Tommy Dreamer comes in at the end, and he makes a 6-man match, right? With him and Rhino and the Diener against the other Diener and Joe Doring and Eric Young for Hard to Kill. And normally I'd be fine with that, right? Like, who cares that Tommy Dreamer put himself in a 6-man match? But when you consider the fact that the main event of Hard to Kill is already a 6-man match, I'm like, why would you do that? Like, why? I'm not a wrestling booker, right? But like, if you have if your main event is a 6-man match, like, why would you put another 6-man match on the show? It's because that already takes away something special, a unique quality from your main event. So to me, that just doesn't make any sense. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't make any sense. There's no reason for Tommy Dreamer to be in this match, and I would have been okay with that if they were doing this for the Impact Plus special. But to do it on the pay-per-view where your main event is a 6-man match, to me, just it's stupid. You're taking away from your own show. So I was not a fan of that.
It was very convenient for Tommy Dreamer that he was able to get himself into a serious pay-per-view match, but he's left everyone else that he's been working with the last couple months continuing to do comedy backstage. Right. AC Romero wearing that detective hat today. You know, and I said this after Wrestle House. I was like, I don't know how Triple XL bounces back from Wrestle House. Like, some of the other wrestlers were able to make it work, but with Triple XL, it's like, dude, I don't see them bouncing back from Lawrence D and all that. And then they put him in the angle with Motor City Machine Guns, and I was like, okay, cool. I already forgot about Lawrence D and all that. And then they doubled down, tripled down on Wrestle House and Who Shot Bravo. And at the last Impact Plus show, they had a chance to get out of this storyline, tripled down on it. Now Larry D's in jail. You know, he could have just won the match and we would have forgot all about this, and then they could be on to something meaningful. And now, you know, Tommy Dreamer conveniently moves on to a big angle, and you know, these guys are stuck playing Johnny Fuck backstage.
What are the rules to that again?
Yeah. I'm afraid I can't get into the specifics. So what did you think about the Susan thing? Did you think, like, my whole thing at first, when she stepped out, I was like, all right, she's probably one of the hottest girls on the roster. I would have liked to see her come out, you know, with a tight bun and maybe she had I think she might have had glasses.
Miss Hancock from WCW.
Yeah. That's exactly what I'm getting at. But she came out real sloppy. She looked really old. And so someone was messaging me saying, I think that she's supposed to be playing like an older character. Like, if you look at her Twitter, it's like she just started tweeting for the first time. Like, she doesn't know how to work social media.
Well, right, but it's not like I mean, I didn't take anything to mean that the character's supposed to be old. I just thought it took it to mean like more serious, more square, right? So like, you know, Sue Young's the undead bride, and Susie was like this childlike, innocent, you know, persona, and this is like the serious, like the ego, you know, like the super ego, you know. It was just like, I'm so serious. Everything is a matter of fact. I am Susan. And I was like, man, I thought it was actually really kind of, you know, fun about this is it's really showing like the range of this performer. Yeah. Right. Because, you know, Sue Young is certainly a character that's going to have its limits, and Susie is even more limited than that. But this, like, now you look up and it's like, oh, I have this person that can play all these different characters, and there may even be another character in there that she can play. Yeah. So I'm interested to see where it goes. You know, the woman who plays these characters is gorgeous. So, you know, I got no problem with seeing her, you know, do as many costumes as you want. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I was fine with it. We don't know what it's going to be yet. It could be fun, but I'm here for it.
I still like to see them pull the trigger on an Undead Realm, featuring each character in the match. So, you know, we'll see. I like the promo that her and Taya did. Deanna and Taya did quite a bit. I enjoyed that in the ring. Tell me, did you pick up on this? Like, when they had the angle with Rosemary and Tenille backstage, they're laying the groundwork for Taya possibly leaving. I don't say laying the groundwork for her leaving, but they're preparing, kind of like with Ethan Page, how they were teasing it a little bit in case it happened. I got that with Taya, because with the run-in with Tenille and everything, which is which is what's really weird about this Knockouts tag team division is that they keep breaking all the teams up.
Yeah. Right.
And we don't even have champions yet. And that worries me quite a bit. You know, was it really necessary to put Alicia in this angle with Eddie when she could have given Tenille a partner and they could have progressed forward? Was it necessary to bring in Jazz as a part-time partner for Jordan when they could have brought in like Lufisto, someone she wants to tag team with and do something going forward? Like, you know what I mean? Like,
so I liked bringing in Jazz. I thought she's been used well, and you know the whole thing, you know, going through the tag team and you know what they got coming up next for her. I thought that was a good use of Jazz. I thought that was actually well used because Jordan to me is she's a singles wrestler. So the idea of her being like kind of stuck in a tag team, I felt like there had to be an end in sight somewhere, right? And so
yeah,
I'm okay with that. But you're right with like, you know, the Alicia and Tenille, that could have been good, but I don't know, whatever. And yeah, and I also they were kind of teasing some friction between Kiera and Tasha over the wad of ones and Monopoly money that has been circulating backstage in Impact since the summer. So.
Jeez. So yeah, I don't think anyone has to be married to a tag team, like, but they can still have pretty loose connections with each other, and you know, breaking them up and creating like I don't understand it, but that's fine. The two who made the finals though, Tasha and Kiera, they're going to take on Havoc and Nevaeh. That's the teams that should be there. They're the ones who work the hardest as tag teams.
Right. Totally agree.
I totally felt, and I said this to you a couple weeks ago, I was like, dude, they didn't bring Jazz on to like not have her at the pay-per-view. Because I was like, you know, they like to bring in these wrestlers in their 50s and have them headline the fucking show. So I thought for sure that was going to be there. So a bit of a swerve for me. I really didn't think they were going to give it to Havoc and Nevaeh.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, Havoc and Nevaeh and Kiera and Tasha are really the only two real tag teams they have.
Yeah.
So it makes sense that they would end up, you know, in some sort of program. They'll end up in some sort of program feuding over the titles coming out of the pay-per-view regardless of who wins. Because again, those are the only two tag teams they have. But hopefully this could be something where whoever has, you know, the women's tag titles, once they get back to traveling, could do like the idea you said, where they just go around to places and they just, you know, defend them against different female tag teams, which I think is really cool.
You can do it versus various local talents and indie wrestlers, and then when it's time to have a real angle, you can use the current Knockouts roster, you know. So we'll see if that's what happens, but yeah, that's the match we're getting. So I'm looking forward to that. You know, I wanted to say the Rohit Raju backstage thing with Chris Bay and TJP. I thought was funny. Like TJP's a really good actor, so he just pulls everything off really good. But I found the angle funny. I thought Rohit telling Chris Bay like it's a year of, you know, of forgiveness and everything was that popped me. I found that pretty funny. So I'm like actually just scrolling through these. So Moose had the match with Matthew Palmer. Matthew Palmer was the third young talent to appear on this show. I didn't think any of the three talents were presented as I shouldn't say a big deal, but they couldn't feel less important than how they came off on the show. But especially Matthew Palmer, who I get the impression without any inside knowledge that he's probably going to stay on the roster.
Yeah, I mean, they did give him an intro. He got, I mean, not like I don't think he had ring music or anything, but he did. He did. He did have ring music.
No. He was in the in the ring already. So Moose's music was playing while he was being introduced.
Okay. But he got like a backstage interview.
Yeah.
And he got to give the, you know, this is why I'm here. I'm chasing my dreams.
Yeah.
He got to give that speech.
Yeah.
So babyface automatically.
Mm-hmm.
And when I saw this match come up, my first thought was Razor Ramon and 1-2-3 Kid.
Yeah,
Remember that?
absolutely.
I
Yep.
was kind of thinking that's what they were going to do here. But then I'm also thinking, like, look, man, Moose hasn't lost in a long time. So I feel like that's a lot of equity that's been built up, and they got to be wise how they use it. So
I got some Colin Delaney vibes from him too, a little bit.
was that the NBA ref that was gambling on games?
No, and it's funny. I just listened to that whole podcast series about his story, like on my drive to Florida last week. No, it was he was in the when they brought back ECW. He was like
No.
this jobber that was trying to get a job, and he kept losing until he ultimately beat the general manager, or whatever the hell his name was. So I got some vibes there, but I don't know, just gut instinct. I feel like he's probably sticking around. I thought that the idea to have him wrestle a security, quote unquote security guard, and instead
Yeah,
of playing us as fucking idiots, just being, hey, well, these guys are wrestlers,
right.
I thought was cool. I liked that. And then I was thinking, dude, Moose was standing in the ring. I was like, dude, Moose is jacked right now.
Yeah,
He didn't look like, if you look at when he debuted with Destination X years ago with Mike Bennett and all that, dude,
yeah.
he didn't look like that.
He's in the best shape of his career by far.
He's absolutely jacked. So the main event was Eddie Edwards, Sami Callahan. I thought this was going to lead to Sami Callahan and Shamrock against Eddie and Dreamer. I would have bet money on it. That's what they were going to do. So the match happened. I was like, dude, these guys, they've got some real mileage out of this angle, and it never felt like we're beating it to death. Like they've always been very I don't know what the word is, but it's not like we're Kenny Omega, where it's like Kenny Omega. Like they came into something hot here, and they let it breathe, and it wasn't like Tessa and Sami. I'll put it like that, where they couldn't let it breathe, man. They just couldn't. When Tessa had when Sami won the title and Tessa came to the ring after, I thought that moment would have been so much better if they let Sami and Tessa breathe for 3 months. And then she just came up out of nowhere. Like we almost forgot that they had a thing. But the moment wasn't big because of that reason. But with Sami and Eddie, like they've let it breathe and then they come back to it. At one point, right, Sami won the feud and then they branched it off doing different things. So I was just thinking, man, that the story they tell with this feud is a thing of beauty. Yeah. And I thought the inclusion of Alicia, which I love the outfit she had on, by the way, but I thought the inclusion of her was good. I thought it really worked, locking her up, and then they were placing the barbed wire in there and all that, telling that story, and then we're gonna get Barbed Wire Massacre, which sign me up for that. Like that's gonna be freaking awesome. That's gonna be a show stealing match. So I'm really looking forward to that. And any thoughts on Eddie and they wrestled almost the whole thing outside of the ring.
They fail to make these Eddie and Sami matches feel like a big deal to me.
Really?
And to me, I think that's crazy because they have such a history that I should be inundated with video packages and promos as to why this match is the next match in a series. Like, show me people being interviewed backstage on, why another Eddie Sami match is, crazy, and how this is one of the most important rivalries of this era of Impact Wrestling. And, how these guys' careers will forever be tied together, through one accidental chair, back chair situation. There's a lot that can be done to make these matches feel like a big deal, and they don't do any of it. And so I like Eddie as a performer. I really like Sami as a performer, but Impact does not do a good job making these matches feel like a big deal to me. And so you mentioned that they're going to end up in a Barbed Wire Massacre, and that sounds exciting, kind of. But But yeah, I just wish they would make these matches feel like more of a big deal. And speaking of like things feeling like a big deal, I'm watching the 2015 Royal Rumble right now, right? And like I just keep thinking to myself, how man, there's all this stuff that was in wrestling that we just didn't appreciate when we had it, like fans for one, and superstars who feel like a big deal, right? Like that's one thing WWE is great about. Like Roman Reigns is different from everyone, and people complain about it and they boo them and they say they're sick of it, just like they said they were sick of John Cena. But damn it, when John Cena's music hits, nothing like it. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Nothing like it. And Impact does not make anybody feel like a big deal. Like I think we were talking and you were like, "Hey, there is no Roman Reigns," and I was like, "Man, you're right. Like there's nobody that Impact really makes feel like they are just head and shoulders above everybody else. They're
Yeah.
about to do it for Kenny Omega, but they don't do it for anybody who's on their show."
Yeah, they definitely do it for Kenny Omega. They didn't beat it to Kenny Omega to death this episode, which was good. I think part of the problem I have is that I understand when you're on commentary and you're like, you want to keep reminding people, oh, Kenny Omega is going to be here. You want to keep reminding them what's happening in the show. I get that aspect of it, but when I watch NWA or AEW or the couple times I've watched Ring of Honor lately, the commentary is so laser focused on the action that you don't have to be like, hey, don't go anywhere because we have this person coming later, because they're keeping you so engaged in what you
Right.
see on your screen. And that's kind of a difference to where you you keep reminding us what's coming up later. Like if that's so important, then you're telling us what we're watching right now is not important. That's the WWE commentary that's Josh learned from that school. We talked about that before. That's what
Yeah.
I remember from watching that product. There's always a lot of this is what's coming up, this is what's later. Again, I get it, but if you're not focused on what you see in front of you, then we will not care either
Right.
as viewers. So I think we disagree a little bit on I feel like Eddie and Sami does kind of feel like a big deal, but what killed it was Sami answering the open challenge, like when Eddie was doing the open challenge and they just randomly threw the two of them together to open up Impact. Like I would have not done that. I would have
Totally.
just, that was like, oh, we can put these guys together anytime we want and make magic. Like, and then that match wasn't even that great. So I would have not done that. But yeah, they definitely, and maybe it's being a small company. I don't know. But you're right. No one feels like a big deal. Matches don't typically feel like a big deal. But I can get, I don't know. I'm looking forward to what they're doing here with the barbed wire massacre. I can get with it. Last thing
I'm looking forward to seeing it. I'm definitely looking forward to seeing it. Like, wasn't the last one they did was the LAX and the Penta and Phoenix? Was that
an
the last
OVE.
massacre?
Yeah, LAX OVE.
Oh yeah. So I'm definitely looking forward to seeing the barbed wire massacre. I want to see. This is going to be crazy. Watch these guys mutilate each other. Should be fun.
One angle I didn't talk about before we're going to talk about the Kenny and all that shit. There was the karate. We haven't talked about this, so I don't know. I generally don't know your thoughts. The Karate Man angle with where, I mean, right when it looks like Hard to Kill is a pretty solid card. They come up with Karate Man versus Ethan Page, and I'm like, this is how he's gonna go out. Now, granted, we don't know what's coming. It could be their Undead Realm theatric or cinematic match, they now call it. Maybe it's something like that, and they find a way to fight each other. I mean, obviously they were in the same room here through video editing, and I thought Ethan Page did a very good job. I've seen professional movies where they've done, and TV shows where they've done this stuff and didn't look like the two people were actually talking.
Yeah.
And he really, I mean, really good job by Ethan Page.
Definitely.
But
Totally agree.
But I have no interest in what, as of now, I don't know what's coming. So maybe it's going to be like the best part of the show for all we know. But right as of now, with the information we're given, I have like no interest in whatever they're doing here. I'd rather see Josh Alexander have a meaningful match with somebody, but thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm interested to see how they're going to pull off the Karate Man versus Ethan Page. They'll probably have to use some sort of stunt double, but I'm interested to see how it's going to play out. And I think what's going to happen is, Karate Man, Ethan Page going to have their match. Whoever wins, wins. But I think it's going to end in Josh Alexander laying waste to Ethan Page and basically signaling the end of the North.
Yeah. I would say that's a fair assumption. Last thing we're going to talk about before our 2021 predictions. So there was the backstage interview with I'm sorry for getting his name, Rich Swann and the Motor City Machine Guns. The first thing that jumped out at me was like, wow, even though they didn't beat it to death, they still let us know several times Kenny Omega was going to be on the show. And then at the end, it's like, oh, okay, by the way, Rich Swann, the Impact World Champion, is going to be on the show too. Like, okay. So they cut the promo backstage. I liked it. It reminded me of almost old school Survivor Series interviews they used to do in the 80s before their match, where they'd all be back there and kind of take turns talking and say something, like I enjoyed the interview. And then, they went to go attack the, these Bullet Club dudes, Bullet Club douchebags, and got their ass kicked again. So what I like is that it's not 50-50. They're not like 1 week. And I know WWE does that with their angles. 1 week wrestler A is standing tall and wrestler B is standing tall. What's going to happen when they, So in this case, Swann and the Guns are always ending up on their ass. So I like that aspect. But what worries me is I don't expect them to win it hard to kill. And, we're talking about 2021 predictions. I think that ultimately Impact is going to make Rich Swann, their own champion, look like a fool. For the sake of trying to help prediction? What's that?
Is that an official prediction?
Yeah. I think they're going to try to make him look like a fool in order to help get Kenny Omega over and to appease AEW and everything. I think that if Swann and Kenny had a match, I don't think there's a chance in hell Swann wins. I think the company is willing, I don't want to say sell out, but I think they're willing to look like fools if they think it's going to, get them over with the AEW audience. So I'm very worried, this whole Don Callis, like this is the real world champion. And like, I don't get that. I've always talked about Don Callis, like flip flops back and forth. He's really good in this role, but I'm having a hard time understanding he's the EVP, but he's also, hey, our champion isn't shit though. Like I can't wrap my head around that really. But what do you got on this whole?
About like by the way, I've been munching on M&Ms. If it's getting too loud in the microphone, please tell me. But yeah, listen, you got to have a plan, and I think they have a plan. They've earned the benefit of the doubt for me on the idea that they approach these things with a plan. There's a plan that's going to play out. And if the first part of that plan is to, continue boosting Kenny Omega so that Impact can get some get back later, I'm okay with that. I think there's such thing as like burial, like, again, talking about like childhood stuff. When the NWO first came out, I used to watch Nitro, and they were just killing everybody, man. Nobody could touch them. It was not even close. And to me, that felt like a burial, right? Because I was like, you just make all the WCW guys look so weak and so worthless. And so we don't want it to end up feeling like that. And I don't feel like that yet when it comes to, the Bullet Club guys beating up the Impact guys. Like, I don't feel like the Impact guys feel worthless right now. Now, it could get there. But I'm not feeling that way as of yet.
they've done a good job in making me really get behind Swan and the Motor City Machine Guns. Like I absolutely want them to win. There's no
Right.
I'm not even even a little bit torn with that. So they're doing a good job building sympathy with them, which I'm sure is what, a lot of what they're trying to do. I got a hot take. AEW had a pay-per-view that got canceled last year, Blood and Guts.
Okay.
Was that supposed to be the War Games?
Yes, and it wasn't a pay-per-view. It was just going to be an episode of Dynamite.
You're right. It was an episode, yeah.
It was in Jersey. It was booked for Newark. And I remember when those tickets went on sale, I was going to buy some, but they sold out so fast I couldn't even get them.
Wow. I have a hot take that they're going to revisit that match now that they've reformed the Bullet Club on AEW. Which John Callis was getting an absolute boner on television when that happened. I think they're going to reform the Bullet Club. I think they're going to take on an episode of AEW, Swan and Motor City Machine Guns, and I think you're going to have to give them an AEW tag team to make it work.
Right.
And, the one thing about AEW's product is they're able to transition baby faces and heels pretty well for the sake of the match. There's not a real clear-cut hierarchy of heels and baby faces. Yeah, some guys are heels, but if they have to work the other style, they can.
Right.
The Young Bucks do it every other week. They keep switching back and forth.
Right.
My hot take is that the Bullet Club will take on Swan, Motor City Machine Guns, and FTR. I think you have to give them an AEW tag team to counteract the Impact tag team on one side.
Right.
And FTR makes the most sense for me.
I was thinking Anna Jay and Ty Conti
as the partners.
I mean that would be the most watchable.
Yeah. I love both of them, so yeah, I go watch them. Whew. Anyway. So let's transition into our predictions for 2021. These are not like I've seen some predictions online and there's just out of control, unrealistic. So we're trying to have some realism here in what we think very well could happen. So do you want to give me one first, or do you want me to go?
My first one is that Triple H. No, I'm kidding. All right. My predictions. Let me search. You start because I have to pull up my prediction sheet.
Okay. The first one I've got, and this is a smaller one compared to my other two. I think I love to talk about commentary. I think Impact's commentary for 2021 is going to be the best that it's been since Josh and the Pope. I don't know who's coming in. I would assume it's Matt Stryker to replace Madison Rayne. If it wasn't, I think it would be a huge mistake. I fully expected when I watched this episode the other night to hear Stryker's voice. Was actually kind of surprised that it was Madison when they said, hey, she's going to wrap up. I don't know that this match, I'm going to assume it was part of the previous tapings, and that's probably why. I don't think it was like a new match. I would imagine they taped all the way to Hard to Kill.
Probably, yeah.
The one thing I kind of forgot to talk about on this episode, this is the marketing mind in me. When January 1st hits, to me, that is when you reset. That's when you update the website. You maybe have a new announce team. You have a new song leading into the show. I get sick of their songs really quick. And then I want to say the Eddie Edwards stuff where he was getting attacked and Alicia and all that would have been so much cooler without the stupid fucking music in the background. They are obsessed with this, and it takes away from it so much. Anyway, with that being said, I'm going to assume Matt Stryker is going to step into this role. I thought Josh and the Pope was a great team. Mm-hmm. In retrospect, I complained about them a lot during the time that they were doing their thing.
Right.
They were a lot better than I gave them credit for.
I'm telling you, I'm realizing now how much we didn't appreciate the good stuff we had when we had it.
Right, because then it just like progressively got. I shouldn't say progressively got worse, but it got worse for a little while when the Pope left.
Right.
And then, Jeremy Borash came on, Sanjay Dutt came on, and it was just, oh my
Nobody
God.
name is even passable. I
What?
mean, Borash is okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, and then Don, just don't get me started about him in commentary. So I'm going to assume Stryker is going to step in the role. The couple times he's been with Josh Matthews, there was, one time on the episode, he did the Bound for Glory pre-show recently, and then he did the Lucha Underground show with Josh. You know what's crazy? Josh says that they offered him the job for Lucha Underground first before Matt Stryker. Like,
oh really?
Yeah, I
wouldn't surprise me.
I have a feeling that's not true. But the couple times they've been together, he's really brought out the best in Josh, and I've enjoyed it. So if that is the pairing, even though I would like to see Josh do something else and let's get something fresh, if that's the pairing going forward, I'm pretty optimistic about the soundtrack they're going to give us, and hopefully it debuts at the pay-per-view itself. But I guess we will see.
All right. So my first prediction for Impact Wrestling for 2021 is that the partnership between Impact Wrestling and AEW will be a long-term partnership. I do not think this is going to be a quick angle. I don't think that once we get to the end of this Kenny Omega Rich Swann thing, that's going to be the end of AEW and Impact Wrestling participating together. Now, they may take a break and let it kind of breathe for a few weeks before coming back to it, but I think there's a few other things that we will see regarding this relationship over the course of this coming year.
All right, fair enough. My views are a little... What we're getting right now from them, I think, is the biggest thing we're going to see from them by far. I think it's going to be very small, matches and everything going forward, but we'll see. But
right, but I so what I'm thinking this is going to end up being is, remember how probably 3 years ago, ROH and New Japan basically felt like one and the same. Like if you were, there was a show, you didn't know whether it was officially an ROH show or, well, I don't know. I didn't watch it close enough to say the truth.
I watched it then.
Right. But my impression was that you couldn't really tell whether a show was an ROH show or a New Japan show because it was that much co-mingling among the roster and swapping of talent. And I think that Impact and AEW are actually going to be like that. AEW is becoming kind of like the home for wrestling, like all wrestling. Yeah. And I think that's a pretty cool place to be. That's something we've never seen before in the wrestling business. WWE has been the home for all wrestling tape libraries, but as far as like a place where like, wrestlers who are booked anywhere can come and represent their brand, no one's really doing that. Jeff Jarrett wanted to do that with Global Force, but no reason to go down that road. And, but yeah, AEW is doing that, and I think it's actually pretty cool.
Yeah, Jeff was ahead of his time with these ideas, and to kind of further your point on the ROH and New Japan thing, I did watch ROH pretty heavily back then. I watched ROH for two reasons. I liked Moose, and I liked House of Truth with Jay Lethal, and and what's her name? Fine ass redhead girl.
Truth Martini?
No, yeah. Not Truth Martini. He's the
oh no, I'm sorry.
That was right name. She was on Gut Check. Taylor Hendricks.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So
right.
Yeah, so I really like that. But anyway, when I watched back then, the New Japan guys won almost every single match. It was like they wanted to appease New Japan, and that I have that concern with Impact 100%. That if it gets too, I don't expect to ever see an invasion angle or a pay-per-view where it's all against each other. I don't think that's going to happen. But if it did, I wouldn't be shocked if AEW had a clean sweep of them. And I hope that's not what happens. My next thing is that the Good Brothers, I think, are going to hold the majority of the belts for the majority of 2021 due to lack of competition. I can see at one point they lose. Like, I know I this is a hot take. It's fantasy booking. I said, I can see a 5-on-5. I would assume FTR would fit into that. They're the ones that make the most sense in my opinion. I could see them actually winning the Impact Tag Team titles for a little bit. I can see a transitional change, I guess, is what I'm getting at.
Right.
And I think it would be an AEW tag team. I think there would be a transitional change, but I think the Good Brothers are going to hold it for the majority of the year. Yeah. There's just no competition. The North is no more. The Motor City Machine Guns may win it at one point. I said the transitional. Maybe it's them. Maybe they're going to win it for a couple months. And then I see the Good Brothers just getting it right back.
Yeah.
But there's no, you can't use Triple XL. One of them is in jail and the other is wearing a silly detective hat. We ain't seen Reno Scum on TV forever. I don't even know what other. I can't even think of the other tag team. There's no more Deaners. Again, these teams have all pretty much meant nothing. You could probably put TJP and Fallah Bahh back together, but Fallah Bahh's been relegated back to comedy. TJP's pretty much carrying the X division from a babyface standpoint. So there's no one for them. They're just
they're probably gonna have to drop it to Havoc and Nevaeh.
Yeah, that's very possible.
All right. So my next prediction for Impact Wrestling for 2020 is that Moose will defeat Kenny Omega for the Impact Wrestling World Championship. Now, I know I said a lot right there. Kenny Omega doesn't even have the Impact Wrestling World Championship. So there's a lot that has to play out. I believe Kenny Omega will get that title at some point. And I think that, he and Rich Swann will have some great matches together. But I think that ultimately Kenny Omega will overcome Rich Swann, or there'll be a situation where it's a triple threat with Rich Swann and Kenny Omega and Moose will end up coming out on top. I think Moose is the person that eventually takes that title off of Kenny Omega.
I really hope there's some big plans for Moose in 2021. It's rumored that his contract is up this year. He's been around for a long time, so I guess we'll see. My last one is that I think James Storm, I got to cough real quick. I'm sorry. I usually try my best to hold that in when I'm podcasting. I think James Storm is going to be inducted to the Hall of Fame this year. I'm not a huge fan of the Impact Hall of Fame. I really never have been, because it's a stepping stone company we've talked about. We're not going to see guys here for a particularly long time.
Right.
Every year that passes, it's harder and harder for them to induct people. And there's going to be a time at one point where it's almost going to be impossible, in my opinion.
Right.
But with James Storm, he deserves to be in there. Yeah. And there was already talk of him going to WWE around WrestleMania time, but the plan was pulled because of the pandemic. He did the appearance on Impact at the pay-per-view. He's not going to come back. I said it back then, he's not going to come back. It's like James Storm has made it clear he wants to wrestle for the WWE.
Yeah.
There's a lot of wrestlers right now who would be very content with getting signed with AEW and not WWE. James Storm wants to work for WWE. He is not going to jeopardize it. He's not going to sign anywhere else jeopardizing that. I would imagine if AEW came with a good offer, he would go there. But what I'm saying is, this is probably the last year that James Storm is going to be a free agent. And he may not even make it that long, but this is the time to pull the trigger on it while he still has some, he showed up at the pay-per-view. They could easily book him for Bound for Glory as well, as a last hurrah. But this is the time really to pull the trigger on it. And he's the guy that I think ultimately goes in this year. My backup to that would be the Beautiful People. Now that Madison Rayne is moving on, or maybe it's her by herself.
Yeah, I think Madison Rain should have been an Impact Wrestling Hall of Famer. I think that her career is something that when somebody decides to put a camera in front of her and sit down and start asking her about her journey through Impact Wrestling, they're gonna be like, whoa. They were like, whoa. Like she's like you ever look around or you ever start having a conversation with an older person and you're just like, yo, whoa, I didn't realize how much life you lived. You know,
Right.
like I think when somebody actually starts talking to Madison Rain about her experience and impact, the things that she's seen, the changes that she's seen, and riding it out, they're going to realize that they have like, they have like an oral history almost of the company right
Yeah.
there in Madison Rain. So I think she should have been a Hall of Famer.
I met her ex-husband once. Because he maybe he still is, but I know he's also in the Air Force, and we do the same job.
Okay, cool.
So I actually met him years ago, very briefly. I mean, he wouldn't know the conversation with me. Someone just introduced me to him, and then was like, his wife is a wrestler. I'm like, really? So then I looked it up, and it was Madison Rain. And this was years ago, because obviously she's married to Josh Matthews now, but but I thought that was just interesting. The dude was like very jacked,
Right.
real good looking dude. So someone you would probably picture her being with, but
Right.
just yeah, that was interesting. I've never met her, so I've never got a chance to actually like tell her that, just to see what her
Right.
response is. Like, hey, I met your ex-husband. But yeah, that did happen. So all right, what you got for the last one?
All right. I got two more good ones. I got three more, but I got all right, let's just do this. Do you have any more you want to
Yeah,
throw out there?
I can throw another one in there.
All right, so I got three more. I think these are all pretty good.
Okay.
All right. So the next prediction I have is Brian Myers will win the Impact X Division Championship and revive Option C. I could totally see that happening. Brian Myers is somebody, like we've said, that has a ton of potential, and I think I could totally see them doing something where he's just crapping all over the X Division guys, and where he eventually ends up with that X Division title, and he just wants to kind of finesse his way into a title match, and so he cashes it in for a shot at at the Impact World Championship. What do you think?
All right. Yeah, to touch on that, I would like to see that happen, because we're both Brian Myers guys. We're both fans of his. There's some people who are not fans of his at all. We really like him. If I think he has the ability to bring a certain star power to whatever title he holds. He's got the promo chops to do it, so I'd have a lot of interest. I guess that kind of ties into what I was gonna say. I think by the end of 2021 that the X Division will completely lose its identity as far as what it once was. Doesn't mean it's going to be worse as far as the style of wrestling. But as I said on the top of the show, the Super X Cup, they barely could even get people that we knew to be a part of it.
Yeah.
The X Division, there's hardly anyone in the X Division, and Don Callis has said, well, it's our mid-card title. It's not, because the guys in your mid-card are not wrestling for it. Now, if Brian Myers does or something like that, get it. But he's still not an X Division style wrestler. So I think either the X Division is going to get so watered down. Obviously, when you got Rohit, Chris Bay, and TJP, you're in pretty good hands. But I think it's going to get very watered down, or they're going to have so many mid-card guys crossing over into it that the style is going to be completely lost. And I know in today's wrestling landscape, a lot of wrestlers do wrestle the X Division style. Impact's roster is not built that way. Most of the people in the mid card don't wrestle that style. You know,
Right.
AEW is a different ball game. You doesn't matter what match you watch, everyone's flipping and doing all sorts of shit. Even Lance Archer, but
Right.
um,
Yeah. No.
that's not really the
Exactly.
case for Impact's mid card. So
Yeah.
I think by the end of the year, the X Division is just going to completely lose its identity. We've talked about them getting rid of it. I don't think they will, because as long as Josh Matthews gonna be like X Division, AJ Styles used to be in the X Division, they're gonna keep riding that.
Right.
So and a lot of Impact fans would probably be very upset if they got rid of that title, but
Right.
I would like to see him move on from it and get something really legit in the mid card. But I think the it's going to completely lose its identity by the end of the year.
Yeah, I totally get that. All right. My next prediction is that Deonna Purrazzo is going to hold the Knockouts Championship for most of, if not all of the year, and she will win the AEW Women's Championship at some point.
Okay.
I mean, you know, look, I don't see another knockout right there who looks like a title contender. And I think that if you just let Deonna Purrazzo run with the title for a little bit, why not? Right? Why not? I don't see a legitimate threat to her position as far as like having star power or anything like that. So I'm all for just letting her have the title and then letting her go to AEW and do what Kenny Omega is doing in Impact right now. Let her, be a big star and big time people, and have her win the AEW Women's Championship.
Yeah, and the thing is, she could actually really hang with any. I mean, I shouldn't say hang. She's probably a better wrestler than the majority of that roster. So she could actually go there and like really bully that division if she wanted to. So it would really work. And yeah, I like that. Did you have one more?
Yes.
Okay.
My final prediction for 2021 is that this year's Slammiversary will be the first Impact Wrestling show in over a year to be in front of live fans. I think Slammiversary is the show where the fans come back to Impact Wrestling.
Okay. I'll kind of put on top of that. I think we're going to see the rowdiest Impact crowd when we get fans back. I think it's going to be the loudest, rowdiest crowd that we've seen in years, because fans are going to be energized and excited to actually be back in the arena. But I think with guys like the Good Brothers, they have someone to react to.
Right.
I said this about El Patron when he was in a company years ago. I was there live when he won the world title, when he won it on his first night in the company.
Yeah.
But when he debuted, the pop in that place, in the Impact Zone, which people were just, oh, you hear a pin drop. The pop in that place was bananas. And we didn't see it on television because the Tron behind him said Alberto Del Patron.
Right.
They misspelled his name. So they had to redo it. And the editing they did for television was horrible. Like, you completely missed the pop. I think they did it in an empty arena and had to pipe it in. And I was like, dude, that was a pop. It was that place really went crazy for him. And it went really crazy when he won the title too. And one thing I noticed when he was in the company, when he was in Impact Wrestling, he's a real company. When he was there, he was so used to playing to very large crowds, that he was able to get something out of them that the other wrestlers just weren't. And I'm trying to think, so the crowd is pretty behind Eddie Edwards. I've noticed that anytime I go to a show. But he cannot get out of the crowd what someone from the WWE system can. Just because they have a taller task in front of them, saying we got to get 15,000 people going, not 500 people. So when you got Good Brothers, when you got Brian Myers, I'm trying to think, and probably even TJP for that matter. You got a couple guys. I think they're going to get just more of a reaction out of people than what we've heard before. So, we'll see, but Rich Swann is another. Well, I mean, Rich Swann was in front of fans before. TJP was. I'm talking about Impact fans, but I just think there's more guys this time that know how to play to a larger audience.
Yeah,
and that is a comment I've been making for a while, is that there's a disconnect between Impact, the show, the wrestling, and the audience. The audience has never had the type of fun that AEW or NWA or Ring of Honor's fans
that's
have
the
had.
number one thing.
Yeah, there's just some kind of disconnect. I don't know what it is. I have my assumptions because I've been to enough shows to where I have my assumptions. But overall, I guess if I had been to live shows of these other companies too, I could compare them.
Right.
But there is a clear disconnect where the fans are not having the same level of fun as they do at these other shows.
Right.
Yeah,
totally agree. And I'm not sure how you fix that, but I wish they would. I wish they'd figure it out.
Yeah. Hopefully they will.
So yeah, that's all I got for predictions. I'd love to hear what the listeners think for their predictions. Why don't you guys drop your comments down below in the YouTube comment section and let us know what your predictions are. Make sure you leave your name and where you're from so we can give you a shout out.
Absolutely. So thanks for checking us out. As always, guys, this is the Cool Factor podcast, and we will talk to you guys next week again. All right. Peace.